Magda, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Gergana, and thanks also the previous speakers for setting the scene so fantastically, because I would like to take what Sandrine just said. Let's make patients more research-centric, and let's do research more patient-centric. That's exactly what was, and I love it, Sandrine. I hope you don't mind, and no copyrights. I will use it a lot from now on. I think that's exactly what we are trying to do, what we were trying to do in the context of Paradigm. So let me tell the story of Paradigm. I suppose I need to share my screen, right? In order to, sorry, you are seeing exactly not what you should be seeing. Here is the presentation. And that's what I would like to tell you today. So first, what I'm going to talk about, it is about culture change journey to making patients' engagement a reality, and to do exactly what Sandrine and Peter were talking about in their previous speeches. And the important disclaimer for me is that this presentation and this talk is not about the Paradigm project. That would be super boring, but about the culture change journey that Paradigm has enabled and that continues thanks to the really fantastic work of patient-focused medicines development, EUPATI, European Patient Forum, and many, many others. So what we started in Paradigm built on what was already done, and now others are taking what Paradigm has done and run with it and make it even better and more effective. So that's just a disclaimer. And then the starting point, you know, we are talking a lot about patient centricity and patient engagement. And in the end, we need to recognize that a lot is going on. We are not starting from scratch. But this very complex picture also tells you that if you really want to do a real patient engagement, not box ticking or tokenism, you know, there is a lot of directions you need to look into. And then the most frequently asked question is, what shall I do with all of that? Where to go? Where to take the advice from? How to do the first step of really making this research-centric patient and patient-centric research. And the landscape is really very fragmented. There are different regions, there are different research communities, there is this patient versus researcher, the doctor versus others. And even the goals are not exactly the same when talking about patient engagement. So something had to be done about it. And this is where the project Paradigm came in. So again, I wouldn't talk about Paradigm as a project, but mechanism to actually bring a community together. And I would highlight the tools that exist today. And there is no excuse for not doing it, because these tools exist and there are many organizations that help putting them into practice. So I think the key conclusion from this talk, if you want to just take away one thing, is that there is no excuse for not doing it. Just simply, there is no excuse. So we brought together, realizing that there is fragmentation, duplication, that there are some gaps, we brought together a patient engagement community and realized very quickly that it is as much about tools. So how do I do a contract? How do I compensate? What are the legal issues? What is the best mechanism to engage with patients? As it is with the culture. The culture of really doing it wholeheartedly and in a genuine way. And the culture within companies, within universities, within HTA bodies, within regulatory bodies, and within the patient communities as well. So it was really about culture change. And you don't change culture easily. It is a big super tanker that needs to be moved, but for which you need a trusted environment. And that's why we put this project under the auspices of the Innovative Medicines Initiative, a public-private partnership where public and private partners had a neutral ground to develop tools, to test them, and to have a really, really honest discussions on what is practical, what is needed, what makes sense, and what the future would look like. So here you see the project objectives, but in a nutshell, what the Paradigm project did, it created a community, or rather enhanced a community, because these communities existed before It created tools, and it created a place to actually discuss about it and to grow it. So we first, the community. It takes a village to raise a child. You don't do patient engagement alone. You need to do it with everybody else. So we needed a community. And I think one of the outputs of a project that lasted for a little bit more than 2 years was the creation of the Patient Engagement Open Forum, which is led today by PFMD, EUPATI, and EPF. And it's the place, it's not a commercial conference, it's the place where you can test solutions, discuss solutions, talk about your problems, and raise awareness about difficulties that you may face. I think I really highlight that. I'll come back to this topic at the end. This is the legacy of Paradigm and, realization that community is everything, and that bringing us together to defragment the field is everything. And you, all of you, have access to the Patient Engagement Open Forum and can take the direct benefit from it. The second thing that Paradigm has done, we looked at 3 decision-making points and 3 types of interactions between patients and different stakeholders. It's not just about universities and companies. It is also about HTA bodies. It is also about the regulators. So we looked at protocol design, at regulatory decision-making and HTA decision-making, and how patient voice fits with these 2 important stakeholders, and developed a toolbox where we looked at, what is missing, what tool, very concretely, Excel table, template, whatever else it is, would help unlocking the locks. And this today exists, and the IMI Paradigm Toolbox, it's available on internet. You can go there. All tools are free of charge, available to you. But what is important is that if you wish a guidance on how to use them, and if you need someone to take you by hand, then you have the Patient Engagement Open Forum, PFMD, EUPATI, and EPF, and many, many others. So the tools are very important, but if you need to actually get someone, if you want someone to take you along, you can also count on that, and that's the important message. So we wanted the tools pragmatic and practical, no big philosophical white papers and etc., but really practical tools. So for example, recommendations on how to find the right match for the right patient engagement activity, or patient engagement agreements explained. Very, very practical advice that you can take and that you can tailor to the needs of your organization and of the program that you want to do. But it's not all to make a tool. This tool needs to be run with and integrated into a system. And here the journey continued, and PFMD, Patient Focused Medicines Development, have actually integrated some of those tools developed by Paradigm into their patient engagement management suite, where you can find a lot of different very concrete tools. Again, the compensation calculator, the draft templates for contracts, etc., etc. There is the book of good practice. There is a lot that exists. That's why, as I said at the beginning, there is no excuse, because all tools do exist and they are available to everyone free of charge from many sources. It's just the question of finding the source, and here I highlight this to you, and really doing it and ask for advice when necessary. And again, many sources of advice do exist. So the work on Paradigm continued. It's not just that we created something, we put it on the website. It has been integrated and built upon in the context of PFMD and others. The third thing that we did was the Paradigm Monitoring and Evaluation Framework. And you would say, "Ooh, boring." Yeah, indeed, might sound like boring, but in reality, you can manage what you can measure, and you can learn when you measure. So this monitoring and evaluation framework is not just a way to measure what you do, but it's a way to really craft design your patient engagement strategy and tactic based on real outputs that you want to achieve. And it contains very concrete, again, things that might help you to achieve that. It has 87 possible metrics with very detailed descriptions. It has 4 sample sets of metrics that can show you how to build a sample set, because you can use different metrics in what you do. And it has sample questions, methods, measurement tools. You have everything. You can create your tailored framework. How would that work? Well, you would take the framework and you would use it to design what you want to achieve. And then you would look on the suite or on the Paradigm website, what are the tools that you need in order to achieve that? And you would take advice from EFPIA or others in order to see how to do it in practice. So actually, again, no excuse, everything exists, but this monitoring and evaluation framework, it's a real tool, and it exists in Excel, in a web version, etc., can help you to design and execute, measure and learn from patient engagement activities. So I think the key message from me is that it can help you in your work, but it's also a tool for co-creation. It's a tool around which you can sit with your interlocutors in the patient communities, in the research communities, and really do that together and define the metrics, design the program, measure it, learn from it, and design new programs later. It's really important because it looks boring, but it is a fundamental part of what Paradigm did. And again, the journey continues, because you can have the framework, but you may not know how to use it. And therefore, PFMD started the work on monitoring and evaluation metric Selector to facilitate the operationalization of this Paradigm monitoring and evaluation framework. So to turn theory or templates into practice, to really help to better align between the selected metrics that you may choose from the framework and the patient engagement activity. So you would see, and the presentations would be available to everyone, you would see that you can choose the right metrics, you can see how to combine, and you can find the description of what it is, and you can also measure your progress towards your goal. And again, no excuse. You can, with all of these tools I just described, you can do research-centric patient and patient-centric research. So the last part of this talk is to come back on the Patient Engagement Open Forum. Patient Engagement Open Forum was our reaction, as I said at the beginning, to the fragmented community and the need to have a place to exchange experience and to look for advice. And it's the 5th edition now this year. Over the COVID period, it was fully online, which actually broke the boundaries and helped everyone from many countries, many geographies to participate. It's going now hybrid because face-to-face is also important, and the next meeting is taking place in October. So it's still time to actually join and participate either online or in person. It is an important part of Paradigm legacy, and it is an important place for co-creation, for building real patient centricity, to discuss with many other stakeholders, to challenge, and to ultimately defragment patient engagement, make it a reality. And I'm so grateful for PFMD, EFPIA, and EPF for continuing this work over time and making the community to thrive. The dates are on the slides. As you see, there is a face-to-face meeting in October. If that's too late for you, November 22nd and 23rd, there would be a virtual edition, and the forum is actually meeting 4 times per year with sessions that are really practical, co-creation, and is nothing comparable. So it's not just talk, it's really dialogue. So to summarize and to conclude, Patient engagement is a shared responsibility. Tools exist. There is absolutely no excuse for not doing it. So we would like to invite each of you to be part of this village that would raise the child. You can find the 4 steps of 7 steps in a recent DIA publication, which we've done together with some panelists from a recent DIA conference. But the 4 steps are here on this chart, and that's the conclusion from my talk. You can do it. You can encourage involvement of patients in research at the level of your organization. You can find and share examples of good practice and existing tools. I presented them to you. You can promote patient engagement training in your organizations, and there are organizations that are helping doing that and help training researchers from public and private, and help training patients, and help training those who manage research. And finally, don't forget, measure patient engagement to learn how to do it better, and all the tools are in your hands. I'll stop here and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Magda. This was really, I think, useful and pragmatical lecture and presentation, because you presented not just the project, but the outputs that could be used in real life. And here is the question: you presented some tools, but do you have any feedback from organizations or programs that use the developed paradigm tools in their practice? How useful they are, or where they found it useful, how they measure their application in the practice?
So we hear 2 feedbacks, and yes, I heard very good feedback on what we've done. So one feedback is, sometimes I need a bike, not a big sophisticated car, and you are putting in front of me something super sophisticated. What do I do with that? Yeah, too complicated. And that's why PFMD did, integrated that in their advice, and that's why EUPATI is also accompanying those who want to use it. And that's the way to cut down and really identify only what you need. So I would say I heard very positive feedback about the practical and pragmatic tools. I heard a little bit of concerns about it's too complex, but this has been mitigated since then by the advice that it's provided to participants who want to take this advice and who want to collaborate. So far, so good.
Great. Yeah, it's a new solution, new thing to implement, and yeah, probably it will get better. And are these tools living ones? I mean, there are some recommendations there. Will they be changed with the time, having in mind the complex and dynamic situation in healthcare, or they're like universal one?
So I don't think that there is anything that is ever set in stone, because society evolves, research evolves, the way we engage. Somebody asked a question in the chat about PROs and integration of patient voice in decision making, or in regulatory or HTA decisions. All of that can tighten the requirements or can change the requirements, but I think that the metrics is universal. It doesn't change. It wouldn't change. Maybe the way you craft your contract in relation to data protection or things like that might change. But I think that, these tools that have been developed would be valid for many, many years ahead. So I would just say, rather than thinking, is that valid, take them, try them, and if it doesn't work, then tell, feedback. The feedback loop is important, and they can be adapted. But I'm not seeing anything in the toolkits that I saw that might actually be quickly outdatable, if that word exists in English. I don't even know.
So they could be tailored. And what kind of organizations are suitable to use these tools? Are they applicable only for industry companies and programs and projects, or they could be used also from NGOs? Is there a specific profile of the organizations that could apply them?
So this toolkit was done to all stakeholders involved in research, development, evaluation of research programs or of medicines, and they are not directed at just one audience. You remember I said at the beginning that Paradigm looked at 3 decision-making points. It looked at protocol design, and here the case studies, the examples show to both companies and patients how the interaction can go to be fruitful and to avoid the tokenism and to also yield results at the end that can be used in the context of a registration of a medicine. I think that's the most important thing, is that whatever evidence patients would contribute to a study, be it through clinical trials or otherwise, it's ultimately used, so that no time is wasted and no personal investment is wasted. So here that this is directed to the research community and to the patients community, but we also looked at HTA and at regulatory, and we know that many of those recommendations actually have been co-designed with those bodies in the context of Paradigm and continue to be directed at regulatory communities and HTA communities and decision makers, etc. So I don't think there is any limitation as to who can use and who can benefit from those tools. I think they are really universal for all audiences and everybody can find what they need in them.
Great to hear this. It was really interesting presentation, and once again pragmatically focused. So yes, the tools, the instruments are there, and you can apply them to make your organization more patient-centric and patient engagement. And also you can measure how you are doing by using this tool. Thank you once again. It was a pleasure having you today.